Okay, so I thought today we will kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to do both lectures in one shot. So you don't have to listen to because it's summer and nobody wants to do this. So we're going to kind of zoom through both texts. I know you didn't read the second text, but you should read it once we're done studying it. And then you'll be ready for your test, which is this weekend, right? Correct? Okay, good. All right. All right, let's get started. Page 83. Okay, so first thing, we're going to learn two things today. First of all, we're going to learn and try to answer the question, where was God during the Holocaust? And we'll see that Simone Weil offers a very different answer from Levinas, kind of almost the opposite answer, but in the similar vein. Similar is the same style. So we're going to look at that. And then the second part, we're going to talk about something very interesting, which is why is it that some of us hear God's voice and some of us don't, right? So in this class, right, I can already tell, I know, some of you hearing God's voice easily, some of you struggling, never heard, right? Sitting in the class wondering, what is she talking about, right? So we're going to talk about that. What is it that, okay, here we go again. Doorman, thank you. one of the two. Thank you. So today we're going to look at what makes the difference. What is it that one can, why is it that some hear, some don't hear? For Simone Weil, it's not that God speaks to some people and doesn't speak to other people, right? For Simone Weil, God is a frequency, always speaking, right? And the reason we are not hearing, some of us, is we are not on that frequency. And so she's going to reveal to us today, what can we do to attune ourselves to that voice, which is always speaking, right? God is always there, speaking, present. Some of us hear, some of us don't. It's because some of us are on the station, right? We've turned the dial in the right way, and some of us still need to do that. So she's going to reveal the secret to that. So that will be the second part of class. Okay. So first thing she begins, right, she talks about loving God. And it's very similar to Maimonides, right? I remember how Maimonides says, you have to prepare your mind before you can receive the divine providence. Remember, you can't, if you have a narrow, cluttered mind, no matter what God is pouring into you, is not going to come, right? So you have to prepare the mind, you have to broaden it, you have to purify it. And then we saw with Rumi, right? You have to prepare the heart, you have to purify the heart of toxins, you know, learn the art of forgiveness so you can receive the presence of God. So Simone Weil is going to say something very similar to Rumi. She's going to say, before we can ever even feel the presence of God or love God, right, or receive his love, right, the heart needs to be prepared. And so very similar to Rumi, right, before we can even receive God, or before we can even be loved by God, right, we need to prepare the heart, right, in a way. So does anybody remember what are the three implicit loves of God that we have to practice? So this is loving lesser objects than God, right? But they're preparing the heart. Anybody remember what are those three lesser objects that we ought to learn to love? And by doing so, we are preparing the heart. Anybody remember the three implicit loves of God? This is on page, title, it is on page 84. No?
I think you might involve like appreciating subjects you initially don't like.
Okay, there's that, yes, the neighbor. There's two more on page 83. Anybody remember? One, two, three, fourth paragraph. Yes. Go ahead.
First, that which is absolutely independent of us.
The fourth paragraph on 83. Okay, let's read it together. Fourth paragraph on 83. The implicit love of God can only have three immediate objects, the only three things here below in which God is really those secretly present, right? So these are lesser objects which, as we love them, we expand our heart's capacity to love and to receive love. These are the religious ceremonies, the beauty of the world, and our neighbor. So if you want to begin the journey, right, towards receiving the presence of God, three things you need to begin to love: the neighbor. If you got that one down, actually, you're good. It's like the hardest, right? If you're capable of loving the neighbor, your heart has now expanded and you are now a proper recipient, right? She continues and says, love of nature. Right? So this is also one path to preparing the heart, right? appreciate nature, spend time in nature, be sensitive to nature. And then the last one is the religious ceremonies, by which she means, are you also capable of being sensitive to ritual? Right? Doesn't mean you have to follow blindly and be another sheep, right? But are you able to enter a cathedral or enter a synagogue or a mosque and feel something, right? Is your soul attuned to what might be going on, right? So she's saying we have to develop these three sensitivities to a great degree, and then God will be, right? It will be easier for God to make his dwelling inside of the heart, right? Okay, so here in this text, we're going to focus on the religious, what is it called? Ceremonies, but we're going to focus on a specific concept in Catholicism. Remember, she's Jewish, convert to Catholicism, right? We're going to focus on the concept of sacraments, and we're going to see how she is going to reframe that, right? We know the love of the neighbor, we know nature, you guys can explore that. Now I'm competing with a plane. Can you guys, do you mind closing the windows? It's super hard to teach in this borough. Oh, did you want to leave it open? Are you enjoying the air? It's fine, I can suffer. It's cool, I get it. No, windows, I understand that. Okay, where was I? Good. Okay, so we're going to look at this notion of the sacraments. And I'm going to prepare you right now what she's about to do, which is really interesting. Especially if you come from a Catholic context, you're going to find this very, very interesting. Let me describe a little bit 101, Catholicism 101, so you can understand what she's going to do. In Catholicism, you have, if you're a Catholic, you will go on Sundays to a ceremony called the Mass in a church, right? During this ceremony, you have a priest, and the priest will offer you the body of Christ, right? In the form of a
wafer.
Thank you. In the form of a wafer, right? So when the priest is giving you this, right, it has profound symbolic meaning, right? This is not about, eating God. This is about really opening yourself up to the presence of God, right? So it's a ritual, it's a symbolic ritual by which you receive the presence of God. As you eat this wafer, you are symbolically saying, ritually saying, I want to receive the presence of God, the indwelling of God in my own heart, right? In my body. So this ritual, only the priest can do. And only Catholics can partake, right? If you're not baptized Catholic, don't even get up for that ritual, right? I had a friend, it was really funny. This is cute. He grew up in a Catholic family, and somehow when it came to First Communion, which is the moment when the child, receives the first time the wafer, he kind of skipped it because he couldn't understand the meaning of it, and because his mind was like, I don't understand what I'm doing, I'm not going to do it. So he kind of like, everybody was there to receive it. It's like they're like 10 or 11, and he kind of went to the bathroom and hid there until so he never became a Catholic, right? And one day he's sitting, with his family. He's older, he's in his 30s, and they all mechanically go up to get the communion, and he stays sitting down, and his sister's like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I never did it. She's like, oh, whatever, just come up. Spanish families, I don't care. So it was just to give you an idea, right, that this is you cannot do it normally if you haven't gone through the ritual of the First Communion and taken it, right, if you're not Catholic. So anyways, so that's very important. Now what Simone is going to do is she's going to really flip it. She's going to say, actually, kind of like Levinas in many ways, she's going to say, actually, we are all called to be priests. And the body of Christ is something that we can share universally to anyone we encounter. So she's in a way taking the Mass, which is normally supposed to be reserved in a very holy cathedral setting with the priest who is ordained to do it and only Catholics can partake. She's saying, no, everybody should be able to eat Christ. Everybody should be able to partake of the divine indwelling. Everybody should be able to receive God, right? And so she says, we are therefore called to be priests, all of us who are reading this text, right? We can become priests. And we can share the body of Christ and the presence of God with each other, with whoever comes on our path. So let's see how she proposes to do that, right? Let's go here on page 84. Okay, go to the second section, second paragraph. The text of the gospel, are you there? Yes, okay. 84, last paragraph. The text of the gospel is concerned only with Christ's presence in the sufferer. Yet it seems as though the spiritual worthiness of him who receives has nothing to do with the matter. It must then be admitted, so here's the key, that it is the benefactor himself, as a bearer of Christ, who causes Christ to enter the famished sufferer with the bread he gives him. The other can consent or not, exactly like the person who goes to communion, right? If the gift is rightly given and rightly received, the passing of a morsel of bread from one man to another is something like a real communion, right? So let me define again. Communion, right, in the Catholic context, is the ritual whereby the priest is giving the bread, and thereby giving the body of Christ to the believers. That's what it means, communion, right? To commune. This is communion means to commune, meaning to have an intimate connection with God, right? This is when this occurs in the Mass, right? So now here what she's saying is that we are all bearers of Christ. Whether we are Christian or Jewish or Muslim or atheist, we are all potentially bearers of Christ. How? Anytime we give something to someone, we are giving a little bit of the divine presence and comfort and love to that human being. And so God, in a way, you see how she's doing this, right? We become, in a way, the hands and feet of God, right? We are the ones who, through our acts of generosity and compassion, can bring God into the world, right? And as such, we are all priests, and we are all giving a little bit of God to that person, right? So let me summarize, right? Anytime you help someone, what are you doing? Anytime you're generous with your resources, anytime you help somebody, anytime you spend some time with someone who needs it, what are you doing? You are basically bringing a little bit more of love into the world. You're bringing more compassion into the world. You're bringing more peace into the world. What are you doing other than bringing more God into the world, right? That's what she's saying. So again, just like Levinas, right? God is not sitting on a throne up there, pulling all the strings. We are the ones who are responsible for the divine presence on this earth. Very similar to Levinas, right? So let me say that again, right? God is not up there doing things for us, performing miracles on our behalf. No. If we're not there to channel God, to be the vessels of the divine love and compassion, there is no God, right? And so that's what she's saying, is that we have been called to be priests that give the divine light, love, comfort to each other, right? And we have been called to be bearers of Christ, to be the ones to be the body of Christ, to be the hands and the feet and the eyes and the mouth and the ear of Christ as we are speaking, listening, helping, touching, right? Carrying, supporting somebody. This is us, the body of Christ, right? We are the ones who channel God into the world, right? Do you follow me? So that's her response to the Holocaust, right? She's saying, where was God in the Holocaust? Her answer, her response would be, where were you during the Holocaust? Where were you when people needed help, right? If you were not there, God could not be there either, because we are the body of God. Does that make sense? Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I would think, I would see, like actual miracles, like thunderbolts in the sky striking enemies down, like bushes on fire all of a sudden. But I've seen people act.
Right, absolutely.
People act makes a lot of sense.
Exactly, right? So we often want to blame God for everything, but we forget the huge responsibility we have, right, to communicate God, right? And when we fail to do that, this is when darkness begins to cover the world, right? Darkness covered the continent of Europe during the Nazi era. Why? Because the body of Christ was missing. Where was it? Right? It was making alliances with the Nazis, right? This was literally, right? The church at the time had to make alliances with the Nazis, right, in order to survive. And in a way, they were sacrificing their purpose for their survival, right? So I don't know. Only a few churches, which remained independent, were fighting, right? But the body of Christ during the Nazi era, which is what Simone Weil is observing and fighting against, the body of Christ disappeared, right? So when we disappear, this is when God disappears, right? When we are not willing to channel love and compassion and justice, this is when God, in a way, cannot come through into this world, right? So that's the first thing we see in this text, how we are, in a way, she has ordained us all to be priests, right? We are the ones who are responsible for bringing the body of Christ into the world, right? Okay, Now, there's a second sacrament, which is also in Catholicism, which she mentions a little later in the text, which is the Sacrament of Baptism. Anybody can explain to me what is happening during the baptism? What is it symbolizing, right? We know somebody goes in the water, comes back out, right? What is it? What's going on? Yes.
You're purifying yourself.
Okay, very good. Right, absolutely. And it's even more powerful, right? In the Catholic tradition, the Christian tradition, the baptism is actual rebirth, right? By the way, for the Jewish folk among us, the baptism is something that Jews do all the time. This is the mikveh, right? This is the ritual bath, which the Christians took that practice actually from the Jews. The mikveh is something that Jews go before certain festivals to purify themselves. Women go every month. It's wonderful, right? And it is really considered to be the waters. There's beautiful descriptions of it where they say it's a ritual bath where the water, it represents the waters of creation. When the first waters from where the world came, right? So when you bathe in that water, you come out a new creation. This is in the Jewish tradition. You see this powerful similarity with what Christians are saying, right? When you enter the waters of baptism, you are literally a new creation. You have left the old you behind and you are now a new person, right? So this is actual rebirth. It's a ritual whereby you go through your own rebirth. You are, as the Christians like to say, born again, right? And so, again, Simone Weil is going to take this into the streets, right? She's going to say, okay, this is not just for Catholics. Anyone can offer this baptism to another person, right? And let's see how she proposes to do that, right? Let's go to page 90. So basically she's saying we can all baptize each other, whether we are atheist or Hindu or agnostic or Buddhist, we can all baptize each other. We don't have to be Catholics or Christians or even Jews to experience this rebirth. So let's see what she says here. Let's go to the last line of 89. Are you there? Wave at me if you're there. He. It starts with he. You have that? He who? Okay. And my clock. Okay. He who being reduced by affliction to the state of an inert and passive thing returns at least for a time to the state of a human being through the generosity of others. Such a one, if he knows how to accept and feel the true essence of this generosity, receives at the very instant a soul begotten exclusively of charity. He is born from on high of water and of spirit. To treat our neighbor who is in affliction with love is something like baptizing him. So let's talk about that. How can we baptize each other? In other words, give each other a new life. Anybody have any idea? What kind of love is this that you can give someone a new beginning, a new destiny, a new calling? Yes, moving on.
Depends like on how you say it, like just as like a human to human, or when you like spread the light, like to about God, talk about God, how He's gonna benefit you, how you can benefit Him. That's what you're trying to say.
From human to human. How can you, for example, baptize?
Without God, just.
Well, God is always in the background, right? God is moving through us, right? So how can we baptize each other in this way that you can renew somebody's life? You can give them a new beginning.
Tell them their life has meaning, has purpose.
Okay, you're on the right track. Yes.
I would say that you could provide someone else guidance, have them live a meaningful life, and I could sense.
But does this renew them though, or is it still they're the idiot who have to listen to guidance from? You know what I'm saying? Okay. Yes, and then big guy. Yes.
Your ears.
Explain.
Can you listen to them?
Oh, okay. Does that renew them?
No, but it gives them a sense of like somebody is willing to listen to them. Like, whatever.
Okay. So that I would put that more with the communion, where you're right in a way the ear of God, right? But I'm talking about we are capable of renewing each other, giving each other a new life. Vega, can you pull this off?
Or like birth, childbirth.
Okay, explain more about the love marriage part. You're on the right track. How can the type of love that you have like that, this kind of love, give a rebirth to someone?
I mean, sometimes, this is random. Sometimes people feel like they can't be loved, or they feel like they don't necessarily love. So when they do meet somebody that offers this to them, they're like, it's like a new world to them, and they're more accepting of it. And it's like it just opens a new chapter to them, and then it just keeps going from there. Whether it's from marriage to building a family and so
Okay.
forth.
Good, that's the idea. Let's see what she says, right? She explains this over here. She says this on page 90 still. Yes. Okay, so page 91 to third paragraph, right in the middle. The attention is creative. Are you there? Can you find it? Right in the middle of the third paragraph. 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph. Is everybody with me? Wave at me, somebody. The 1, 2. Okay, good. The attention is creative. Okay, so here she's talking right before. She says only one stops and turns his attention toward it. Okay, let me go a little before. Let me just read the whole damn paragraph. Okay, paragraph 4. Christ taught us that the supernatural love of our neighbor is the exchange of compassion and gratitude, which happens in a flash between two beings, one possessing and the other deprived of human personality. Okay, so there's two people, one who is, pretty good. The other one is really doing horrible, right? Clearly in need of a rebirth. One of the two is only a little piece of flesh, naked, inert, bleeding beside a ditch. And this is not just literal. This can be the state of our heart, right? Our heart can have become, over the years, through trauma and disappointment, a little bit of flesh, naked, inert, bleeding beside a ditch. This is how you might feel inside, right? He is nameless. No one knows anything about him. Those who pass by this thing scarcely notice it, and a few minutes afterward do not even know that they saw it. And then here's the key. Only one stops and turns his attention toward it. The actions that follow are just the automatic effect of this moment of attention. The attention is creative. What does it mean to pay attention to someone and through that attention, give them a baptism, a rebirth? What kind of give me a concrete example of this power of attention? Yes.
I guess I'm listening to them, hearing them out.
It's more than that.
Providing
yes, you're right.
Feedback.
Okay, very good. You got it, right? When this is, by the way, Kierkegaard talks about this too, right? Kierkegaard talks about the power of a vision into someone's life, right? What you see there is what you can awaken, right? And very often, right, this is really what she's talking here is the vision of love, right? And you've all had this experience. How many of you had this experience? Like you fall in love with someone and you find them amazing, and everybody around you is like, "What do you see in that person? Like, why the hell are you with? Who had this experience?" Okay, okay, most of us, right? Why? So, and then they tell you you're blind. You're just blinded. Actually, are you blind or are you seeing more deeply than the average human being? That's what Simone Weil is saying. What is it called? How do you call this? When your eyes go like this? What? The gaze. What were you saying? Yes, same thing, right? The gaze of love is powerfully creative. When you look at someone with love, meaning when you are able through this gaze of love to see all the potential for good that is hiding within them, when you're able to visualize the good that is trapped inside of them often, and through that gaze you see it and you honor it and you celebrate it and you express it, that person can become whatever you're seeing of them, right? That person can have a completely new beginning, right? That person was maybe a thief or a cheater or a liar, but you see something more. And as you are looking at that something more, that person is just blossoming into that new being. Do you see that how the power of your gaze, right? Yes.
One prominent example, I guess a lot of people can know of is Star Wars, Luke Skywalker and his father, Darth Vader. Luke sees like there's still some good in his father who's like committed a ton of atrocities, and despite the fact his father committed many atrocities, he still sees he can be redeemed. So
is he redeemed? I forgot the ending.
It's like Return of the Jedi from the 1980s.
Did the Darth Vader get over himself?
Redeemed him, yes.
Yeah. I didn't see the whole thing. So.
Yeah, it's from the 1980s.
Great example. Very good, right? Through your gaze, you can give someone a rebirth. That person was always X, Y, and Z, but you see A, B, C, D. As you're looking at that person has the possibility for the first time to become that person. This is why Vega was saying that when you fall in love with someone and all of a sudden that person sees that they have value through your gaze, they have the opportunity to start anew. That's what it means to baptize somebody.
What if you both know, like, let's say you're in love, right? But it's also possible, like you said, you think you're blinded, but you're not. What if it's both? In a way, sort of actually it's true. You are blinded because let's say you're avoiding the comments of others. Like, oh no, I know better. It's what I want for myself. This person loves me, or I love that person. But sometimes your eyes cannot see what others see around you. It's like a bird's eye from the top. You know? We think we know everything as humans. We don't know anything.
Yeah, I mean, of course, and I'm going to stop on something you said that, oh, this person is good for me. It's not about that, right? It's about you're seeing in that person who they could be. It's not even about ourselves anymore, right? I'm just seeing everything they could be, and I'm in love with that. That gaze is so powerful, right? And you're seeing rightly. Everybody has that, right? What sometimes you don't want to see because you're so in love is the bad around it, which is there, which is also true, right? But the people are only seeing the, what do you call it when you have a nut with a shell, a husk? The husk, is that the thing around it? Right? Yes. People are only seeing the husk of the person, and they're seeing truly that husk is there, but you're seeing beyond the husk. And to the degree that you are consistent with that gaze, you can break the husk. That's what Simone Weil is saying. And in doing so, you can baptize that person, give them a new beginning, right? Okay, so this is just giving you a glimpse of what she's doing here with some of these, sacraments of Catholicism, saying actually we are called, all of us, to be priests that give the body of Christ to each other and that baptize each other, right? And this is the best answer, in my view, to the question one of the best answers to the question, where was God, right, during the Holocaust? Well, where were we, right? Were we there offering, right, channeling God, channeling renewal, channeling rebirth, or were we ourselves, right, cowering in that context, right? Okay, so let's move now to the section on the why some of us hear the voice of God, why some of us don't hear the voice of God. And for Simone Weil, right, this has to do with us being able to be on the right frequency. How many of you remember the radio in your car that you turn the dial? Anybody have that, right? So you're turning the dial and it's like a lot of static until you get to the right frequency, and boom, now you have the radio station always playing, by the way, right? This frequency is in the air, but you have to turn the dial a certain way so you can get to that frequency, right? It's the same thing with God, according to Simone Weil. The frequency of God is all around us, and some of us all maybe were taught young to turn the dial in the right direction. Some of us don't even know to turn left, to turn right, and we are messing around with the dial trying to figure it out, but it's so much static that we give up. The hell with this radio station, right? So Simone Weil is saying it is sometimes just a little adjustment that needs to be made. And so here's what she is going to suggest in terms of how we can turn the dial in order to begin to hear more clearly this divine frequency that is always all around us, right? And so what she's doing in this next text, right? So I'm skipping over now to page 127, which you'll read later, right? She's saying most of us, when it comes to spirituality, there are three attitudes. Right? The first one is you tried a little, doesn't work, you give up. Right? Second one is you're trying to make it happen, trying, and you're really putting in a lot of effort and no results. Right? But there's a third path, right? So you have giving up, you have the will, and then you have what she calls attention. Right? So we're going to talk about that. So in this text, she's distinguishing between will and attention. So will, W-I-L-L, the striving, the effort, or attention, which we have to figure out what that is. And in this passage, she's going to say, you cannot make this happen, right? Hearing the voice of God is not something you can proactively make happen. So if you've been trying to make it happen, just drop everything right now, right? It's also not something that will happen to you if you're not doing anything, right? So there's two extremes. You're trying to make it happen, or you've just given up and you're not even paying attention anymore, right? She's saying we have to find a middle way if we're going to succeed. And this middle way she calls attention. And the way she's going to describe it is very interesting. It's going to be through the Chinese concept of passive activity, which we're going to talk about. Okay, so let's read a little bit and then we'll go to passive activity. So let's go to 126, 123, third paragraph. Everybody with me? The effort. Who is with me? Wave at me if you're with me. One more person. Two. Thank you. The effort that brings a soul to salvation, meaning the effort that creates this attunement between you and the divine frequency. This is like the effort of looking or of listening, right? It's not like the effort of talking and doing. It's looking and listening. So let's continue. It is the kind of effort by which a fiancée accepts her lover. It is an act of attention and consent. Whereas what language designates as the will is something suggestive of muscular effort. So she's saying, okay, attunement is not something that you're gonna make happen. You can't force God to talk to you. Here's another funny story about forcing God. This friend of mine became an atheist one day. And I was like, okay, so what would convince you otherwise, right? And he's like, well, if God plants a tree, if a tree rises up in my backyard overnight, I will believe that God exists, right? So this is the imposing on God what he should do for us to believe. This is different, right? This is more delicate. Here, you are not actively trying to make anything happen, right? This is, and we still don't know what it is. And then what is it? Do we just sit there, right? No, it's attention. So let's continue to explore it. Let's go to, let's go further with, let's just read the next line. The will is on the level of the natural part of the soul. The right use of the will is a condition of salvation, necessary but remote, inferior, negative. The weeds are pulled up by the muscular effort of the peasant, but only sun and water can make the corn grow. The will cannot produce any good in the soul. So you might be thinking, I can become a better person. I can perfect myself through effort, right? And Simone Weil is like, you cannot with your will or effort do anything. The connection is going to happen through attention. So let's talk a little bit what that means, right? Because we are between doing nothing, being indifferent, giving up, and making it happen, striving to make it happen. Saying, no, it's something between. So we have to bring in this concept of passive activity to understand what it means, attention. So did you guys research a little bit in the Chinese text, Tao Te Ching, the concept of passive activity? Anybody can tell me a few things about it?
It's like flowing the natural rhythms of life rather than trying to just push through, resist you. It's not the same thing as laziness. It's not the same thing as doing nothing. You're still doing things. You're doing things. Let's go with the flow.
Okay, good. We'll come back to that. So it's more, you're going with the flow. It's not you're not in control, right? That's one element. So let's continue. More specifically, what does it mean to do without doing? Anybody else research it? Yes. Okay, good. So it's like okay, good. So it's a more natural, spontaneous. So we're getting the sense of it, but we still don't know exactly what it entails. Like for years, by the way, I was thinking, what is that? I even have a big calligraphy of it, like this passive activity. I made some Chinese person do a calligraphy, and I look at it every day. I don't know what it means. It's in Chinese, but I've been pondering this concept for so long. What does it mean to go with the flow? I don't understand this flow. Where is this damn flow? How do I connect to this flow, right? So I was struggling for so long, and finally, I think I got into I was able to find some actual explanation how you do that. Anybody come up with some more detailed explanation how you get in this flow? Okay, there are two that I have figured out so far. Number one, acting without a goal. That's one way to get in the flow, right? You do what you got to do. This isn't the Chinese, right? I'm explaining the Chinese text for now, the Tao Te Ching. You do what you got to do without trying to make the outcome happen. So example, you're in school, you're struggling, you're going to do your part without stressing over the outcome, because you know that somehow by doing your part, you're doing enough and the rest is not up to you. So it's a kind of surrender. By not stressing about the outcome, you are surrendering to the flow where life is going to take you, right? By the way, life sometimes will take you to fail in college, and that's okay, because maybe life has other plans, right? So whatever it is, you do your best and life will carry you where you need to go. And you don't need to be like, beating your head against the wall. You can just do your best here. Okay, doors are closing, moving over here. Doors are closing, doors are opening. Let's go here, right? This is kind of really doing your part and then trusting that your action will be carried by a flow, right? This is acting without a goal. There's a bumper sticker. I'm from the Midwest, so we have a lot of those. I love this one though. This is do your best and let God do the rest, right? This is a great bumper sticker. Do your best and let God do the rest. That's the first way, right, to do this. This is acting without a goal. You do your part, and then you know that ultimately the result is not in your hands. Ultimately, the result is God's work, right? Or in the Chinese context, is the work of nature, is the work of the intelligence of nature. So in the Chinese context, I'll just explain that briefly. It's interesting. For the Chinese, nature is intelligent. Wherever you are right now, nature has put you there, right? And if you are able to surrender, meaning you don't start to grasp and strive and over here try to make things happen, you just do your part and then see where life opens up, you will get to your destination very easily, right? And then in the Christian context, it's the notion of do your best and God will do the rest. So you do your part and then you surrender to the flow, or you surrender to the divine grace, right? Okay, so that's the first one. Second one, in the Chinese context, passive activity or acting, doing without doing, is acting not with your agenda, but as a response to your environment. So the second way to see this is you don't act with a preordained agenda. This is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to do. And then this and then that. But you're kind of, attuning yourself to what is in front of you and responding. This is great dating advice, by the way.
Yeah.
Right?
So true.
Since it's the springtime, we'll throw in a few sprinkles of dating advice. Right? You're dating someone and you have already this set thing of, what you're going to do, where you're going to go, how you're going to do this for that date, right? And then immediately stuff starts to get in the way of that, obviously. Anybody dream of the perfect, you guys are going to experience this. We all dream of the perfect wedding day, right? And then it all goes wrong, quote unquote. No, it just doesn't go according to your agenda. It doesn't mean it goes wrong, right? So here you are on your date and you have this plan that it's going to be this and this and that. And then people just get in the way. And now you're getting sour, you're getting angry, you're getting resentful, and your date's starting to wonder why they're dating you, right? Now, what if you would adopt a different posture and be like, oh, this obstacle came up. Interesting. I wonder where life is leading me. Let me respond to this. Okay, now we're here. Let me respond to that. So you're just responding to your environment rather than imposing an agenda. This is great parental advice also. Suppose you have a teenager who's all tattooed up and, pierced. And they're doing what they want, and they have, pink hair now. And yes, last week it was green. And you're dealing with this crazy teenager, right? What would be the way to deal with this teenager in a doing without doing? And what would be the other way? What are some of the bad ways we're dealing with? Yes.
I guess just let it happen and see if they get in trouble. Just let them kind of deal with it.
It's more than that. It's more than that. First, let's look at the wrong way. What would be the wrong way to deal with your teenager? They're going out in a bikini to a party.
Bikini. Snap down on them. So people the rebellion even more.
Yeah, you're like, you have your agenda, how a teenager should look, how your daughter or your son should look, and you're like imposing that agenda on that person. No, don't do this. Don't wear that. You can't smoke this. You can't go with this person. You can't date that person. You have your fixed agenda. Is that going to work? Completely not, right? It's not going to happen. Now, so doesn't mean now you do nothing, sit there, become some kind of, lump on your couch, right? What would be the way to do without doing? You were almost there, but then you messed up the end. What would be the way to do without doing? Teenagers about to go to a party looking like crazy. And yes.
Like maybe instead of saying you're not allowed to go out, like you're dressed like that, you have to stay home now. Like you say, oh, you can still go, but like change.
It's the same thing.
Why? You're not letting them go out. You're just letting them go, but you have to change.
But that's the first one. You're not letting them go out because they have these clothes, right?
Yeah.
So now you're saying you're still not going out unless you change.
No, I'm saying you can go out, but change.
What if they don't want to change? Now what do you
They
do?
can't go out.
Okay. Is that gonna work? Is there a window in the room?
I don't know. I'm on the second floor.
Okay, we're learning a lot today. So let's see. None of you are figuring this out yet. I'm gonna see a horrible parents you guys are gonna be. Yes. Okay, try to like manipulate them into shaming them. I can see it. I've seen your teenagers already. I'm seeing you.
No, I'm not telling you don't go. I'm just saying.
No, it's nice. It's nice. I get you. Okay.
I would try.
That's very tactful. That's very tactful. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
my.
outside like this too.
That's interesting, but it's not yet the doing. Remember, doing without doing is no agenda, response. How can you best respond to the situation? Yes. And then that's it. Are you responding when you just be like, do you?
You're not imposing an agenda, like, okay, maybe you wanted your kid to be a certain way, but like, you know, they ended up being this kid with pink hair. Like, just let them be, you know, let them just like.
So you're on the right track, but you're still missing, like King Kathy, you guys are missing 1 point. 1 point. Anybody can find it?
I mean, maybe it's like you don't have to tell them what to do. You can say your opinion, but you don't force it on them.
Oh, you're really close. Yeah, you're pretty close. What would be like? What
I
would
would
it?
just try to relate to their sense of rebellion, which it's a bit
You're
subtle,
99% there. 99% there,
like-
because you're relating, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
How about this?
I'd be
You.
like, hey, maybe you should wear.
Oh, so you go worse. You you'd be with makeup, but they're wearing the same thing.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Last try for anybody? Yes, by the way.
Don't really like tell them what to do, more than just tell them like how you feel, like what they're doing. It's like acting
You guys are still with you, still thinking the self is very big in your parental persona. How can you diminish the self?
I guess taking some oxygen.
Yes, how? Give me an example what that would look like. You're on it.
That would be like, okay, so instead of so you completely some alcohol
Mm-hmm.
situation,
Yep.
and again, I might screw up, but you take some oxygen situation, and you completely relate to that.
Exactly.
And they want to wear a bathing suit. I'm like, all right, fine, you can do it. I'm not telling you can.
Yeah, yeah.
You're just like, I understand.
You're practically there. You see, why are we fighting? Because I have an agenda that you need to fulfill. That's the beginning of all fights between parent and child. If you take out yourself and you're like, I just want to support you and respond to you when you need it. By the way, don't do this for kids. Kids, you have to have big agenda, okay? Big agenda for kids so that they don't end up like that teenager, right? So that's a different thing. I'm not saying to your kids, be like, oh, baby, do what you want. You know, no. For kids, you want to be very kind of more rigid. But for teenagers, the action without actually acting is better. You are there. I am responding to your need. Do you need me to acknowledge you? I acknowledge you. Do you need me to sympathize with you? I sympathize. Do you need some guidance? I guide you. But I respond to what you ask. I do not impose what I want. I respond to your needs. I support you and your needs when I feel that there is a need there. Right? Sometimes means you intervene a little bit, but you're always intervening because of them, the need that you're perceiving, not because of an agenda that you are losing. Do you follow me? Okay.
Try that.
Yes, I have actually. That's why I can talk about it. Yeah, it's not bad actually.
Like my brother, for me, like, he's 13, right? And he does all these crazy things in the house. Like sometimes he'll, instead of waiting for us to pick him up, he'll go with his friends, like a few blocks, go to the store. And we talked to many times about this. We tried to relate. I tried to relate.
He's 13. It doesn't count. He's still a
My
kid.
son is older than me. She tries to relate to him.
No, 13. You got it.
He said, I don't care about what you went through. That's what he tells me. I'm like, listen, you know, I did the same thing or whatever. Like, that's your problem. He's like,
He's
I'm
a funny guy.
I want to do what I want.
Yeah,
you know?
and maybe he has to, right? But then, are you going to be around when
But that's
he?
bad though, because teenagers.
Is it though?
Yes, it is. 'Cause they do stupid stuff.
Aren't we? Don't we all?
Yeah, but different. Like, if you're
See,
like
that's the thing though. Imposing is going to backfire even worse than responding. That's, you know, you're dealing with something where imposing is going to be even worse, right? They will go even more in their crazy ways, right? Whereas if you're there, look, I'm going to respond to you. I'm there if you need me. This, according to the Tao teaching, is going to work better. Now, let's not stay stuck on this parenting example because I'm trying to get back to Simone Weil with
it depends on the person.
yeah. Let me continue. So now we have a better idea what it means attention. So let's go back to these two concepts, right? Acting without a goal and acting in response to the environment. How would that look now as you are trying to attune to God, right? You're trying to hear the voice of God. You're trying to connect with God. How would you practice? What would be the first one? Let's look at the first one. What would it look like to act without a goal in the spiritual journey? Yes.
Like, don't do something, help someone out with the mind to like, well, I'm only doing this, like it's like God says so, or like I'm gonna be rewarded by God. Just like do it because it's something nice to do.
Okay, good. So you have more on the horizontal level. I was thinking more on the vertical level. Like, how do you, as you're seeking God? So I know we've done a lot of horizontal, like just people to people, but she's really talking about the possibility of a personal connection, right, with God, something that Levinas doesn't want, right, if you recall. How do you, with that personal connection, how do you develop that connection by entering the journey without setting a goal? So let's say you want to meet God, you want to connect to God, right? How do you do this in this way by entering without setting a goal? What does that look like in the spiritual journey of seeking God, right? Yes. Okay, yes. Okay, good. Now, so first thing, right? Don't have expectations how it's supposed to go, right? How God's supposed to show up. What's he supposed to sound like? The time frame, when he's supposed to act, right? Because a lot of us, after a few months of trying, we're like, you know what, the hell with this, right? I'm done with this. And we don't understand that, right? This acting without acting means within God's time frame, not yours, right? So sometimes means you have to wait for this clearing to open up where you can hear the voice of God. So that's one way. Vega, you had another one, or was it?
Yeah, I was gonna say like living the present moment, be more involved with what's going around, happening now.
Yes, good. I'm gonna put that in the second one. That fits really good in the second one. You wanted to
Yeah,
add?
so I was just going to mention, you would still do a lot of the same things like prayer, meditations, like rituals, Sunday or whatever day, etc. But if you would do it without a sense of expectation.
Nice,
So,
nice. Open-ended.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen, right? I'm not going to try. You know how I used to do that? I used to meditate and be like, you know, I want to feel something, you know, and I'm trying. Meditation is supposed to be relaxing. And I was really uptight about my meditation. Like, I have to feel something at the end of this meditation. Otherwise, right? Being more open-ended, be like, okay, I'm going to do the ritual, whatever. I'm going to do the practice. I'm going to do these, but I'm not going to expect. I'm not going to force. I'm just going to wait to see what happens. Who knows, right? So it's a kind of release and allowing God to do his thing in his time, right? Let me say that again. It's a kind of surrender. You're still going through motions. You're still seeking. You're still going places, reading books, talking to people. You're doing your thing. But you are completely open-ended as to what will be revealed and when it will be revealed, right? How God will choose to reveal himself and when he will choose to. You're very relaxed about it. You're saying, I'm just going to do this thing and see what happens. I'm not in control. I don't need to be. Good. Now, the second one. What does it mean to, same journey, to act in response to your environment rather than with prefixed agenda? Now, Vega, you can develop what you were saying.
I guess whenever something happens to you, go with it.
Yes.
And not question it. Or
Absolutely, right? As you are in this journey, as you tell yourself, I'm going to begin this journey, things will open up here and there. You will get an invitation or you will get some insight, right? And what Simone Weil is saying is, don't let your agendas block you. Follow the signs, follow the leads, right? Be attuned to your environment, who is talking to you, what book you're reading or finding in the library, what invitations you're being given, right? Respond to your immediate environment. Don't try to be like, it has to be, right? Shut down your mind, right? Be open-ended and then respond. Be keenly aware of everything around you if there is not at one moment some little sign or glimpse or invitation. We saw that with Levinas, remember when he was talking about the shyness of God, right? So same thing, we have to be incredibly attuned to our environment and incredibly receptive to what comes our way. Don't let your agenda, suppose you're, this is the worst, suppose you're a Jew and a Christian invites you to some prayer meeting, right? What are you going to do as a Jew? Jews? Not go, right? Like, what the hell? What is she saying? You should be willing to do. Go, what the hell? How can I, right? You get an invitation? Maybe I will get a profound revelation, right? Without necessarily having to convert to Christianity. Maybe we're going to read a passage, or I'm going to hear something, but you're blocking if you just say, no, I'm this, and God will speak here, not there, right? As soon as you start to say God will speak only here and not there, you're blocking. You have your agenda. You're not responding, and you're missing out on the voice of God, right? You're missing out on the fullness of God. You're seeing, so it entails a willingness to cross thresholds, right? Because if the invitation occurs, don't push yourself, and sit in the church by yourself, right? Don't do it if no one invited you. But if there's an invitation, don't say no. Who knows? Maybe there's something will open up, even if it goes beyond your own threshold, right? Because for Simone Weil, passive activity, you don't control. This is what it means. You don't control. You open up yourself to a journey which is beyond your control, and you're willing to go wherever it takes you, right? This was the journey of Abraham in the Hebrew Bible, right? God is like, go to the place I will show you. Now you don't know. I'm not going to tell you where it is. You're on your own. I will show you as it goes along, right? So this is very similar to Maimonides, right away, right? Remember who said something similar, right? Maimonides said you have to leave behind your comfort zone, be willing to do that, right? So that's passive activity. And once you're able, so you see how it's a release, but at the same time, it's a profound attentiveness. You're focused, you're listening, you're watching, but at the same time, you're not controlling the journey. If there's an invitation, you humbly go. You don't let whatever is inside of you cut you off from hearing something that you might want to hear if you were to cross that threshold, right? Any questions? Anybody?
So like, what if Satanists invite satanics?
You go.
So it's like scary. You don't want to be sacrificed. They would take your blood.
Yeah, there has to be some limit.
That's a good question. Yeah, that is a good question.
I've had some invitations to be spooked, so like, something that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I think you have to see whether you are, if there's a part of you that is intrigued, I think. If all of you is like freaking out, then maybe it's not a good indication, right? Because you can trust also but if part of you is intrigued and then something in you shuts it down, that's what you want to avoid, right? Part of,
I thought it was going to get hidden.
Okay, good. No, so absolutely. So there has to be some resonance in your heart, right? When you hear the invitation, has to be some resonance, but then don't let whatever is in you shut it down. Be like, no, I am this, therefore I cannot do that, right? So that would be the idea. Or if you're, I don't know, there's so many ways we have to cross thresholds. Like, suppose you're, an academic and you're invited to go, to some techno party, and part of you is like, maybe there's something, right? Follow, right? Do, even if it means getting out of your comfort zone. Of course, if you're completely like, then probably not a good idea. You can ask God for a better invitation. Like, I do that. I'll be like, not like, no, please. Can you just, I'm guilty. I'm guilty, as Simone Weil is saying, of putting frameworks, right? So good. So let's read a couple more passages on that, and then we can call it a day. So here we are on page 127, second paragraph. So talking about this letting go, surrendering and following, being attentive to the signs and open to what invitations come on your path. There are people who try to raise their souls like a man, continually taking standing jumps in the hopes that if he jumps higher every day, a time may come when he will no longer fall back, but will go right up to the sky. So you're trying to make it happen, right? Thus occupied, he cannot look at the sky. And then she says this: we cannot take a single step toward heaven. If, however, we look heavenward for a long time, God comes and takes us up, right? So we need to have a searching attitude, knowing that we are not the ones that can find it. We have to be given it. You see what I mean? Let me say that again. We have to search knowing we will never find, but hoping that we will be given the answer, right? So we have to search knowing we can never make it happen. We can never force a spiritual connection, but we can search in the hope of being granted, right? An encounter. This is the utmost humility, right? You're searching in the hope that you will be granted an audience, right? You're knocking in the hope that the door will open. He raises us easily. As Aeschylus says, there is no effort in what is divine, right? So if you're struggling and you're uncomfortable, like the Satanist, right? You're invited by the Satanist and you're like sweating now, blood from the thought of going there. It's an effort, right? It should feel effortless, right? Effortless in the sense that